We got to get the sailing ship in the background behind us.
Okay.
Here's Dad and I down at Dana Point with the tall masted schooner that Dad was a pirate on at one point. Oh, looks like there are a bunch of kids out there today.
There's a couple of them here.
Here we are over at Dana Point.
And there's lots of people here in here.
Oh yeah.
This is where you board the Catalina.
Catalina Express.
Catalina Express. It's not here right now, it's in Catalina.
Soon to arrive.
Christmas time at Newport Harbor, they have what they call the Christmas parade.
Oh yeah.
All the boats are decorated.
I've heard of
with
that.
Lights.
Yep.
It's really something to see.
So do you go down and watch that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's thousands of people down there. I mean, if you can park your car, you're really lucky. But yeah, it's an event, and the people that live down there throw these fantastic parties. You know, and you walk by some of the places that are right on the bay there, and there's a lot of them, and they'll have 50 people there.
It's the event of the season. Here comes the train. Woo-hoo.
Served out an apprenticeship in Montreal, and he had a job in Montreal for a while that was with the transportation company that had all these streetcars, and he knew everything about how a streetcar operates. And then I don't know how it all happened, but I remember he told me the story that my grandfather's brother had settled in, why did that name just go out of my mind? In the U.S. down the East Coast. Yeah.
New Jersey?
Not that far down.
Maine?
Maine. Yeah, in Maine. It'll come to me in a minute. In any event, and he went there because he got a job working at a movie theater must have been roughly 1922, maybe 23. He had met Grandma.
Uh-huh.
She was, at that point, just 20. And I think it was 21 or 22 when my grandfather, Leo Lesser, passed away. He died of what in those days they called consumption, what we call tuberculosis, which he had managed to catch on a trip to Europe. I was literally born at home, which I guess in that day was not unusual. On Newport Avenue, off of Jefferson Avenue in Detroit. And then somewhere along the line we lived, I don't know the name of the street, but I remember the main street near
north side, south side?
It was right by Lincoln Park.
Right by Lincoln Park.
Lincoln Park was,
Okay.
Some funny memories about Chicago. But the school, I remember, had wooden steps I had to go up to get up to the school, and the steps were worn. I mean, grooved down. But I can still picture those steps. Must have been 8 or 10 steps you had to go up. Another memory from Chicago was that every minute that light would flash through the window. Well, I guess I slept anyway. But I can still picture that room with the light coming through the window.
What road are we on?
I think we're most likely going to end up on 5. 10 years and start over again. But it's what you do feel when you're 90 years old and you know that this cannot go on forever is that every day is just a little bit more precious than the day before.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's not a countdown, but
You know, that's interesting. You mentioned countdown, and it struck me that I stick a cup of coffee in the microwave and push 50 seconds on it, and it goes zero, and that's 50 seconds less than I have.
there's 50 seconds less.
Franchise Tax Board figures out how much they made that day to play, and they tax them on that much.
Sure.
They pay income tax in California on when, quote unquote, they're working in California.
Right. Away games. So all the.
Hey, Dad. Morning. Heading into Polly's. Woohoo, everybody. The gang's all here. We're in Polly's. Good morning. Just 4.
Oh, I guess so. He said, well, he says, you gotta have a tux. So he says, you gotta go by this place on Rodeo Drive, and I'll call them and they'll have a tux for you. So I go, when you go down Rodeo Drive, you can't park your car. It's curb parking, but it's valet. In any event, I go in and they're all Mr. Rowland and all this jazz. So they fit me up with I thought it was a very unusual tux, but anyhow. And
It's a Hollywood tux.
And then I go out to the house. trying to remember. Yeah. Yeah, there wasn't, that was after Liz, before somebody else. Anyhow, we had, you have to go, you can't just go to one of these things. You have to go in a limo. And the limo is ordered and all that. And then there's an interesting thing. There's a time schedule. The limo has to arrive there at at to the minute.
Right. But you got to get in queue. You're staging.
Yeah. So we get there. I'm trying to think. My memory is that there was a woman with us, but I don't remember who it was. Anyhow, we get out of the limo, and of course they got the red carpet, and so I let them walk ahead of me.
So, time out, back up. You're missing this part of the key story. Is that the woman was Audrey Hepburn.
No.
That's what you told me. And George couldn't be with her.
Could have been.
George couldn't be with her because he was still married to Elizabeth Ashley. And so you had to escort her down the red carpet.
Oh, okay. In any event, you know, and that's when somebody asked for my autograph.
Yes. They said, "Who are you?" I said, "Gilbert Rowland." The Gilbert Rowland? Yes, I am.
Yeah. No, the first part of it was somebody said, Pep had said to me, he says, "They're going to want you to sign something. Just sign it." So sure enough, I walk up and somebody puts a pad out in front of me with a felt tip pen, and I signed the thing, and then I hand it back, and I would start to walk away, and I hear this voice say, "Who's Gilbert Rowland?" But that kind of went on when we got to the table. One of the people at the table was the writer, columnist for the L.A. Times. And so we're introducing ourselves around the table. Of course, he knew most of them, but he says, "Gilbert Rowland." And at that point, I knew it was going to come up, and I just said, "Yeah, I'm the real Gilbert Rowland." And I said, "There's a guy running around this town using my name, and I wish you'd tell him to stop, you know." And he thought that was so funny for all evening long as people came by the table. Jeez, the woman's name just flashed through my mind. In any event, people would come by and he'd say, "I want you to meet the real Gilbert Rowland." So I met a ton of people.
The Gilbert Rowland? Yeah.
Because all of, it's a big publicity thing, and they all want to be seen, they want to be noticed, and especially they want the guy that in the newspaper to have put their name down.
Right.
So our table was a really busy table because it was kind of like a parade of people coming by.
So was that guy a friend of George's, do you think?
A what?
Was that guy a friend of George's?
Well, George knew him.
Yeah. It's kind of your job to know the newspaper guy.
George always had, George's relationships with newspaper people was always, because number one, he would tell you exactly how he felt, and a lot of people in Hollywood wouldn't. And George was a good quote, because he would tell it like it is.
Did he ever talk to you about the Hollywood Squares thing, or it wasn't Hollywood Squares, that game show where he said he caused quite a disturbance because he was on some game show. He said this is a farce.
There was a little short comedian that was on the Hollywood Squares.
Yeah.
Mexican. God, he was so funny.
Yeah. I can see his face. I don't know what his name is for the life.
Yeah. it was one of the trips out where I brought your mother along with me, and we were there, and so George said, we'll have dinner. And so, and I think we just went to the restaurant. Anyhow, we got there, and there was a couple of other people already there, and I wish I could think of that guy's name. And he said, well, so-and-so's coming. So anyhow, sure enough, the comedian from the Hollywood Square came. And, you know, you just see him and you want to start laughing, you know.
Yeah.
But he
seems like Richard,
he's
not
late.
Richard Burton, but something like
Richard
that.
Dawson?
He's late. And I'll never forget the story he told.
Could have
I'm
been.
late because I had to fix dinner for my girlfriend's boyfriend. That was his story. And he went on to this long thing about he really likes this girl, but she runs around with other guys. Why can't I think of his name? He was, and I'm telling you, I don't think I ever laughed so much during dinner. Every word out of his mouth.
It wasn't Richard Dawson?
Yeah.
The guy from Hogan's Heroes?
Yeah, it's funny how the gal I was escorting at the Golden Globe was tall, blonde, and I could remember her name. You'd know her instantly. She was very nice, kind of quiet actually. One of the most interesting things that happened during the dinner.
Good morning. How's everybody doing? Who's having fruit and breakfast potatoes?
Pep. And finally, Pep said to me, he says, I got to go backstage. So off he went. And
Chicken fries. Okay.
Yeah.
Cakes. And do you guys like any ketchup, hot sauce? And regular coffee?
Yes, please.
then he tells me, I didn't even know it at the time, but he was friends with Barbra Streisand. And she was a presenter that night.
Mm-hmm.
And she was backstage and time was coming up and she was going to have to come on. And it was news to me, but I guess a lot of people knew it. She suffers from stage fright.
I was going to say, she was probably really nervous.
Yeah. And so they had him go back.
Calm her down.
Yeah.
Coffee here.
Counselor.
But she was not one of the people that ever came to the house. So. Well, you met a lot of the people that came to the house. Yeah.
Well, I remember not really meeting, but seeing David Jansen.
Yeah, David Jansen.
He was at that Thanksgiving in
Rockford Club.
No, The Fugitive.
Oh, right. But Jim Rockford was there too, wasn't he?
He had come to the house. I don't remember he was there when we were there.
I don't remember seeing him once with George.
You didn't really meet David Jansen because he wouldn't talk to you. He wouldn't talk to anybody.
He just wanted to drink.
Mm-hmm. He was pretty surly. So did you ever meet Johnny Carson? Because Uncle George and Johnny supposedly were really good tennis buddies and played tennis quite often. And I think they were neighbors.
Dinah Shore was his neighbor.
trying to think of the woman that always had the golf tournament named
Dinah
after-
Shore.
Dinosaur.
Dinah Shore. Remember she was there for Thanksgiving?
Mm-hmm.
She didn't come for the dinner, but she came to make her oyster dressing.
Yeah. I remember that.
And George made me go in the kitchen and help her.
Yeah.
Remember, a button came off my shirt, and I was like right here. And Elizabeth Ashley was like, "Oh, I'll fix that for you." So I went back into the sewing room.
Really?
Stitched my button back on.
I haven't, an aside to this whole thing, you know, that
Is she still alive? Elizabeth Ashley?
the thing that Pep died from the effects of pneumonia. He got pneumonia because he had been diagnosed with a tumor in supposedly it was upper part of the stomach, something like that. And they decided to use radiation. And they overdid the radiation and burned his lungs. Well, this, I can't remember now how long ago it was I read it. There was a big lawsuit against Cedar Sinai Hospital, which is where Pep was. And it turned out that the machine had been misadjusted.
Calibrated
Technician.
incorrectly.
It was, I don't know who found it, but it was way more than the factory recommendations, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
So there was this big lawsuit. And then the news in the paper was the lawsuit got settled. I never asked Brad whether they participated in that or not.
Do we know what's up with Christopher now?
Brad doesn't talk about Chris anymore. The last word I got from Chris was that he was in jail in Utah. We haven't heard a word since then. Pep Hard is, I guess, a Scottish name. George Sr. always touted things. In fact, he had a painting that always hung over the fireplace that was Scottish cattle in a pasture in Scotland. And Scottish cattle have long hair.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that picture. Looked at it for years.
Highland Coo.
In any event, and in fact, George Sr.'s brother, Murray, was an officer in the Canadian Army, which was very British. And he would come in his uniform, and even one time he was wearing his sword, but he always walked with a walking stick. That was Murray. Just thinking about it, I have to laugh because Pep could do a fantastic pantomime of Murray. We had some fun times.
I can taste the difference between
Her maiden name, R-O-H-R. That's a Swiss-German, but it was a family that had settled in Ohio, in the area near Dayton. And there was, over on the fireplace,
we always had a sword hanging there, and it was, the sword was that her father, George's grand, had fought and was an officer in the Civil War. Most,
Yeah.
No thanks.
Yeah. That's good. Thank you. And I'm finished.
Pernell, I guess, was the youngest in that family. And when we get together with the family, it was utter confusion because there were women, I can remember so well, in the family that were aunts and such. They were Pernell's sisters, and they were gray haired. I mean, they were old. And Pernell apparently was born when her father was in his 60s, or something like that. You know, that was, but we'd go down to Dayton and visit, and one of her sisters was married to the guy that owned, he had a lot of money, but he owned the Dayton baseball team, which was a minor league baseball team. So we always had to go down, especially when the team was in a championship or something. Unusual family. I mean, the relatives were so widely spaced in age. You know, they're calling them cousins, you know, and they're old people.
I remember when
well, part of that family lives in San Diego.
when George came and presented him with this book, like the Grand Hyatt book, like all the, it's like a coffee table picture book kind of thing. But they were pretty enamored with George the whole time. I got the feeling of Mr. Bard, you know, constantly. And then one of the first times we met, we had dinner, was at Costini Michin. We had this whole discussion. He was asking me, like, how do you make red sauce? I want to know from start to finish. I said, well, you get about 2 or 3 cans of you know, Roma tomatoes. It's like, canned? I said, yeah, use canned tomatoes. Even Italian chefs know you're not going to use fresh tomatoes because you want them like overly ripe. You want them semi-cooked already. If you use fresh tomatoes, it's just one more process you have to do to start cooking them. And as far as the end product, if you were a professional chef, you'd probably rather use the canned tomatoes to get a better product. So we had a discussion about that. I was like, no, you use canned tomatoes. It's one of the few times where the canned product is probably better than the fresh.
Back to Chester, England. Chester family many years ago, they were carriage makers.
Good. There's some butter on you.
Yeah. And that business, I guess when carriages started going out of style, became a furniture manufacturer.
What do you know, Bob?
He's a pattern maker.
Well, that's what I was leading up to. So I'm still going to dig deeper, but it looks like the family has always, every single generation of the family has had a person that we would call a woodworker
Yeah.
in the family. And it's intriguing to me because my grandfather, what is it they call the guy that makes the mold? Pattern maker. He was a pattern maker. That was
It's the highest.
my grandfather.
Pattern maker, pattern maker.
Yeah, that's the most precise
Because you're like
type of woodworking
you're
that
like
you can think of.
machinists.
Yeah.
You're like machinists of wood.
And the pattern maker makes if they're going to cast a part, and he worked for the railroad, Canadian Railroad, so they would cast these huge iron
Right.
castings for locomotives.
Yeah.
He literally makes a model of that part in wood, except that it has to be a little bit larger than the actual part because there's a shrinkage when they
Sure.
pour the molten metal.
Right.
But I mean, they work to the millimeter.
So how would they do that, Bob? Sand casting?
Well, yeah, they do sand cast and then use that, and it gets destroyed at the first casting. But yeah.
So you leave the wood in there, in the cast?
No, they make
No.
a sand.
They take a mold out of, so you pour the sand cast into the wooden part, and then pull it off, and then there's your mold now. Now you can pour the iron into the sand. So the
Wait.
wood-
So
the
you,
wood-
okay, so
The wood just makes
he carves this out of wood, okay? And then you put this in the sand,
pour
Yeah.
sand on top of it. You put it
right,
in a box.
mold it and everything, right? I remember we used to do that in metal shop.
And it's in two parts.
Right, so this is sandwich basically right in half.
You split it.
And then you open up and you take the wood out,
Yep.
and then you put it back together. They don't put wax in there?
No, not for, that's wax, lost wax. It's more for detailed work.
Like jewelry?
Yeah.
That's called the lost wax process.
For,
Okay.
yes, art sculpture and things like that.
In any event, that was my grandfather.
So you could reuse that piece of wood?
Often it would only get used once, but yeah, it's cataloged and stored.
So
And
Coming
every,
up-
every foundry had a pattern maker or a team.
then my father's brother, Fred, was interesting. When I was very young, I remember that Fred was a artist. But he eventually ended up with a furniture company in North Carolina, designing and working, making furniture. And then later on ended up down in Miami working for Bertram Yacht Company, designing and making interior for these expensive yachts. So, and
That was me.
then, you know, not that we told Bob he had to do it, but Bob comes along and ends up, what is he? He's another woodworker in the family.
You did. You were a woodworker. I mean, in some ways. I mean, you were always crafting or building or cutting. I mean, we used your tools. Abused your tools.
To the day we sold that house on Tamashanner, we had that sliced in the step in the family room.
Oh, yeah. I was look what a saw can do.
I think it was a coping saw, real thin blade.
But Bob was good. You know, I recall that.
Okay, anything else for you?
Could I have some more coffee?
Sure.
Yeah.
Right with it?
Of you boys, I tried to keep you two out of my tools, but I would let Bob use my tools.
Are we waiting outside?
I remember you gave us. You wanted to help. It's like, well, here's a block of wood you can pound some nails in.
Basically, truffle oil
We
steak.
pounded all the nails in. Like, good
Created
job.
by
He's like,
chemistry
now turn it
lab.
over and pound them back out.
He created the smell.
He's like, okay. We pounded them all back out. It's like, now we did. Like, pound them back in, guys. He's got this little piece of 2x4 with like 20 nails in it. It's just like, turn those nails. And then just turn it over and turn it back out.
I really subscribe to the idea that there's many things built into our genes that get transmitted along generation to generation. But the woodworking thing really intrigued me about the Rowland family.
Yeah, but I think Bob makes a good point. You exposed him at a pretty early age to it. So I don't think that there's any scientific basics.
We were building like
See.
go-karts out of 2x4s and stuff
It's the
like that.
environment.
Well, what about,
took our
remember
wagon apart.
in Massachusetts, we were always making ships, boats to sail on the reservoir?
Yeah.
We were out in the boonies in Massachusetts.
And it was part of an old barn, I guess, or something like that.
I remember we put it in, we went somewhere, like for, I just remember it was like, way back in like western Massachusetts somewhere. And we went driving somewhere and got that. And put it in Mom's car, station wagon, and brought it home.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Which is maybe just coincidence, but I really want to pursue that. I haven't.
But then also, Mom was always making stuff too. Like
I had it on my list
crafts.
to do
she was sewing all the time. Like she was
To
always
track down your
Yeah, we
mother's
had crafts
family.
going on.
like there was like
The-
drawers of just stuff.
I've always
like, oh, we're gonna
felt
save
that the
for
Shelagay
this, we're
name
gonna
was
save
a
that
very
for
unusual
And
name for
I know Susan's
Ukrainian.
more involved with some of
Well,
that.
you know, it's funny, Dad. Some of the DNA research seems to point that it's not Ukrainian, that it may be Polish.
Could be, you know.
We in our DNA we don't really have any Ukrainian in us, which that makes no sense if you know.
We couldn't make sales.
So they may have been
Yeah.
Polish and were
remember
forced
Dad
out and moved
had-
to the Ukraine.
Been
So,
doing some project
yeah.
and he was cutting off like these half-inch by half-inch scraps that we would use as a mass. It was like perfectly
Now,
square.
if we track down that family,
And
you can't
we
do
were-
it through
we're like,
Ellis
oh,
Island
that's
here
perfect.
because they
We would
went
drill
to
a hole.
Canada first.
Bigger so we could cram the
Oh,
Shelagay,
yeah.
your grandfather
rod into the
and
round
his
hole,
brothers
basically.
immigrated to Canada.
And then we
and
glue
some
it
of them
in and
stayed
stuff,
in
then
Canada,
we make the maps,
but,
you know,
your
in the sales
grandfather, Petro,
and we'd sail them out there. Sometimes we were
managed to
immediately
get
tip
into the
over.
U.S.
I remember our model boats.
Interesting. Oh.
Yeah.
Sailing out and watching the
Yeah.
The great naval warfare on Reservoir Number 2.
When Duchess swam across to the other side, thought
Yeah.
we'd never see her again.
Oh, that car.
Here we are at gorgeous 5442.
I have another set of clubs yet.
Well, let me see.
I'll let you look at them.
Yeah. Where are they?
Come on in.
Come in. I got a sumo and a
You guys came up after me.
sumo and a mini.
Hi, Ann.
Hi, how you doing?
Oh, that Mineola. I think I'll have that, Bob.
Let
You
you
want-
guys visit with Ann. I gotta get ready to go to my meeting.
Meeting on Sunday?
Oh, this is Sunday.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was going to say, what meeting?
I'm thinking,
Oh dear.
jumping ahead. Thank you for telling me that.
Meeting's been postponed for one day.
Yes.
Let's go back in the sitting room then.
Okay.
Well, we have one more Polly's breakfast, Ann.
Oh, yeah, how was it?
Good.
Well, it was crowded. I had the Belgian waffles.
That big orange, huh? Here, let me give you something to put in.
I gotta put
Wait,
it
that's
here.
the See's candy that I sent down here. It's not even opened. Is this the See's candy I sent down at Christmas time? Looks like it.
There were 2 boxes, and I think we ate one of them.
You still have the box of See's?
So what did you have, George?
Chicken fried steak.
Chicken fried steak?
Yeah, one of the things I noticed,
With the gravy and everything.
the eggs that they have there can't compare to my fresh eggs.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah.
I noticed there's a taste difference.
I wouldn't think they would.
Are you taking photos of their place?
I'm videoing your whole fantastic luxury.
Well, let me get this out of the way.
Oh, that's beautiful.
See, there's
All
some
right.
drywall ceiling. Remember we talked about yesterday?
That's the Russell.
Russell's too.
All of them are recasts. They're not original.
Oh, you're right, right.
Oh, well, I don't think I want them then. I only collect original artworks.
Can I get one of your lithographs? Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Series 1 of 1000.
Yeah.
I have a,
Okay.
my,
If we took it to Antiques Roadshow, they would say, "Sorry, Charlie."
yeah, that's right, yeah. They only, if that were an original,
It would be
you're
worth.
talking about multi-thousands.
Yeah, maybe 10.
That's what they would say on Antiques Roadshow. Well, if you hadn't have stripped off that varnish and refinished it, it would have been worth about 38,000.
As it is,
Yeah.
we'll give you
But
250.
you know what? The trick is finding the buyer. A lot of that stuff might be worth something, but you have to find the buyer.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, you don't find the buyer. You end up paying an auction house 25% of the purchase price, and they find the buyer, right? That's how it works.
And if it doesn't sell, you still gotta pay them.
That is a reasonably valuable print. They belong to your grandfather.
How about that one in the,
Those 2.
what about that one in the top? The guy with the white dog.
I don't know. I don't know.
I heard that's where it's big bucks. Come on.
I think he's in jail or
The
something.
dog is worth more than the model.
What's that guy up there?
The painting
Oh,
below
my spiky.
is a painting done by Fred Rowland.
Let's get some light
Spiky,
on
she
this
was
thing.
such a good girl.
Oh, well,
We really need to start
put a-
now getting rid of things if we don't want to leave.
George, there's my
anybody
golf ball
with too
collection.
much
Yeah,
to get rid of.
I've seen this golf ball collection. Every time I sleep here, I open my eyes and look at that.
I started collecting
I
golf
think you
balls
have
every
one-
time I went to a different golf course.
And I think you have one from Princeville here. I'm pretty sure.
And somewhere up there, I think one of the balls that
We
you
need a
top
light over
is
there,
my
don't
hole-in-one ball.
Oh yeah.
Where is it?
One of these is a Prince. One of these is from Princeville. I remember when I
Yeah,
looked
I'm
it
sure
up.
it is,
Look
yeah.
for it.
Those are probably older.
Some evening.
Yeah. Yeah. ASU. That's guaranteed an old school title as well. Yeah.
Well, we should open
Oh, I think
the
that's the scorecard from the whole.
dining
Oh,
room
okay.
cabinet.
Oh, where's the scorecard?
Right there.
The incredible miracle at Laguna Woods. Course
That's
1.
Boy, was that something.
I've told you the story ever?
The trouble, you know, with you taking things.
That's hole
your
5.
area Is that things like these will not maybe do very well. in
Well,
the
you'd
winter.
have to professionally pack it.
But I meant even when they're there.
The
Why not?
You know, well, do people have
that par
premise and
3
things
hole.
like this in the house? I thought the humidity
Is
and
a-
the,
It
you know,
pretty much is
damp